Mr. President, later this week we're expected to consider legislation to reauthorize a rather obscure area of the law, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, known as FISA. What is this FISA all about? It's all about 9/11. I've been around the Senate for a few years, and I can remember the tragedy of 9/11, the thousands of Americans who lost their lives, and the fear we had as to what was next. Our determination to keep our country safe. I'm proud to be a Democrat, but I will tell you, I think President George W. Bush, a Republican, handled that tragedy in a superb way. He led our nation at a time when we needed leadership. He made it clear to us and said words that I still recall, that this wasn't going to be, this war of terrorism was not going to be a war against the religion of Islam. He said it was a religion, a peaceful religion. I remember that pronouncement he made because it was considered to be courageous, politically courageous, for him to say that the group that attacked us, their religion should not be held against them. I'm not going to dwell on that, although I do want to salute President George W. Bush again for his courage in leading us to that moment. But we decided also that we weren't going to be attacked again. No, we're going to prepare ourselves. We're going to defend ourselves. We're going to create agencies of our government that have the authority, the power, and the resources to keep us safe. Never again, no 9/11. And so we created a brand new structure of intelligence agencies in America. I had been in Congress for a number of years, familiar with the old way we did things, served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was going to be a new day, a new organization, and we were going to do everything we can to make sure 9/11 never happened again. We created the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and that basically said we're going to listen to and hear and pay attention to our enemies. We're going to stop them before they hit us. Most Americans would say, good. That's why we elected you. For years, Congress, although, despite this, has avoided confronting a fundamental flaw at the heart of our surveillance authority. Under Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the government collects communications of foreigners overseas without a warrant from any court. But in the process, the government, unfortunately, over the years, collects millions of communications of innocent Americans, people they are not authorized to surveil. Once collected, the government can search these communications without a warrant from any court. So here we have this question about the possession of your privacy as an American citizen being assaulted by your government, despite that Fourth Amendment. Every American needs to understand that this law, which I referred to, allows the government to listen to your phone calls, read your private messages that have been collected under Section 702. The government does all that without any court approval. They're not breaking down their front door. They're listening on your phone. This is a fundamental flaw that I have worked to change for a long time. And over again, every administration, both political parties, says, Senator, don't lose any sleep. It's just a little problem. We'll take care of it. But the Fourth Amendment's prohibition on warrantless searches is not an optional decision by the government. That Fourth Amendment is a core safeguard of liberty guaranteed by our Constitution. Every single member of the Senate, Democrats, Republicans, raised their hand and took an oath. And what was that oath all about? To uphold and defend this little book. As detailed in a recent report by the nonpartisan Brennan Center, the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the National Security Agency have abused Section 702 for years. Years. These abuses, according to the FISA court, have been, quote, persistent and widespread. The government itself has reported hundreds of thousands of unlawful searches using this authority. In other words, 702 is directed toward foreigners, remember? They're using it against Americans. They're collecting information about people who are not even covered by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. As further detailed in the Brennan Center report, the government has used Section 702 to spy unlawfully on many people. Who have they spied on? Members of Congress, congressional staff, judges, journalists, protesters, political donors, even women on dating apps. Go figure. That's going to make us safer in America? Past attempts at reform have not solved the problem, and I've been at this for many years. As the Brennan Center explained, and I quote, the current system of Section 702 oversight relies almost entirely on the executive branch self-policing to prevent, detect, and report abuses. In other words, the fox is watching the chicken coop. That's a flawed system under any administration. Under this administration, it's especially alarming. The FISA court has already raised concerns about how this Trump administration is using the powers that I've described to you this afternoon. But the Trump administration is keeping the latest opinion of the court secret from the American people. I've seen it. I invite every member of the Senate to go and see it. I'm not going to betray anything that's secret or confidential, but I guarantee you that if you'll take time out of your busy schedule to go down to what we call the SCIF, to order up a copy of a document, I won't be any more specific, and take the time, it'll take you a little time to read it, your opinion of the role of FISA and the rights of Americans will be impacted for sure. We can't wait to fix 702. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to say we can have both liberty and security. I credit my colleague from Oregon, Ron Wyden, who came up with that phrase, and it says it all. Can we be safe in America and still be free? Is it possible? I think it is. This issue is even more urgent because of the Trump administration's disregard for the rule of law. The question before Congress is whether we will grant warrantless surveillance authority to President Trump and MAGA loyalists like FBI Director Kash Patel and the new, announced today, Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte, for the rest of this administration. I'm not going to go into the suggestion of Mr. Pulte to head our intelligence agencies, simply to say, totally unqualified. The current administration has repeatedly targeted political opponents. We've seen it all across the board, including former Fed Chair Jerome Powell, former FBI Director James Comey, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. It's attacked independent institutions like the Privacy and Civil Liberties Board. I know that because I had a hand in creating it. We said if there's going to be all of this surveillance going after enemies of the United States, let us make sure there is a board of 5 people who will be watching these activities and reporting the excesses to Congress if changes need to be made. What did the Trump administration do to the 5-member Privacy and Civil Liberties Board I've just described? They removed the 3 Democrats on the board so it couldn't function. The courts have a responsibility here as well. They fired career law enforcement officials and public service servants at the FBI and the Department of Justice. They've cleaned shop. Who would have been responsible? These people would have been responsible that a program like 702 be lawful and nonpartisan. They're gone, removed by this administration. So the watchdogs that we build into the system to make sure that no president, no administration goes too far in the exercise of their responsibilities and duties. Yes, we want a safe America, but yes, we want it to be a lawful country too. We want it to abide by the Constitution. And those of us who swore an oath to uphold and defend it have the first responsibility. In the hands of a government that has treated the Constitution as an afterthought, Congress should not place blind trust in the hands of an administration which clearly can use this surveillance power for political purposes. It's not hard to imagine what this president and his hand-picked FBI Director, Kash Patel, could do with unchecked surveillance powers. Are my fears of Mr. Patel warranted? Read his words, his own book that he wrote about his view of government. And just for convenience, he provides not an index, but a list of his political enemies. His political enemies. Now, this man is the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and has the power of the surveillance which I've described to you. Trust him? It's not hard to imagine why this president chose him for political reasons. What happens when the administration uses Section 702 to spy on Americans, perhaps those who protested the murder of 2 innocent people in Minneapolis during the ICE raids? They used to spy on Black Lives Matter protesters. Is it hard to imagine they would extend that to those who question the masked ICE agents' activity? What happens if journalists have their texts and phone calls snooped on because they dare to report controversial news about this administration's misconduct? Any member of Congress who wants to ensure there are checks on this out-of-control administration should not vote to reauthorize the authority of 702 without meaningful guardrails. I want 702 to continue to be strong, to be legal, to be constitutional. We can make it such. Fortunately, Congress does not need to choose between protecting national security and preserving America's constitutional rights. We can do both. As Senator Wyden said, we can have liberty and security. That's why, along with my Republican colleague from Utah, Senator Mike Lee, we've introduced a bill called the SAFE Act, which would reauthorize Section 02 with basic, practical safeguards to protect privacy and civil liberties. Specifically, our bill would require the government to obtain a judicial warrant before accessing the contents of America's text, emails, phone calls, and other private communications, with exceptions, notable exceptions, for emergencies and special circumstances. That's exactly what we believe the Constitution requires of us, because the founders rightly understood that no administration should be given a blank check to invade a citizen's privacy without the oversight of an independent judge, without the protection of the Fourth Amendment. Some argue there's simply not enough time to enact significant reforms before Section 702 expires. They're wrong. This is a perennial claim every time this debate rolls around. I've heard it over and over. Gosh, it's a shame we can't correct up the mess in 702, but we've got to move on for other important business. Even if the authority temporarily lapses, which I don't believe it will, the surveillance program can continue under existing law as it has in the past. The time to finally protect Americans from warrantless surveilling under Section 702 is now. Not later, not next time, now, with this Congress and this Constitution. We've heard false promises too many times before, and with the power in the hands of this president, we just can't afford to wait any longer. If Congress cannot protect America's constitutional rights under these circumstances, when will it do it? I oppose the reauthorization of warrantless surveillance powers under FISA Section 702 without guardrails to better protect the privacy of Americans. I urge all of my colleagues to do the same, and I yield the floor.